Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Sobriety Unleashed podcast. I'm Simon Chapple.
And I'm Ellen Wiz, part of Sobriety Sisterhood and Be Sober. And today, Simon, before we start today, we're talking about kind of friends and family and sobriety. But after last week's podcast, I had somebody reach out and say, wow, the chemistry between you and Simon is really good. How do you two know each other? So I thought we'd cover that before we went on.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not in a relationship, just to be clear.
We're just like the new Richard and Judy is all.
Yeah.
No, but we've been friends for 20 years.
Yeah, I think it might even be longer than that. And Ellen, you used to work in a gym in the town that I grew up in, which is Aldershot here in the UK. Probably, well, the less said about Aldershot, the better.
Absolutely.
But that was where we first met, and it's really bizarre because, of course, at the time, neither of us knew what the other was drinking or our relationship with alcohol. It was just you worked there, and you had quite a bit of sort of time on your hands. I'd come in and have a chat.
Yeah, we would naturally. I said the other day to the woman that actually you would come in and we would talk and talk and talk and talk. So this podcast is just an extension of that. We would happily sit and chat and you wouldn't do too much working out for a long while.
Yeah.
We didn't know about each other's drinking. Mine was a lot of cannabis smoking back then as well. And it's funny that we knew each other in a health and fitness setting. Yeah, probably neither of us were that healthy or fit in hindsight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you did a great job of keeping me out of the gym, actually, because we'd spend hours talking.
Yeah, that's really bad.
Yeah, and then the friendship sort of stuck from there. There was a period where we weren't in contact much other than on Facebook. And then, of course, bizarrely, we both ended up quitting drinking separately of each other and then reconnecting through sobriety.
Yeah, absolutely. And I came to your wedding reception where I remember you were absolutely drunk as a skunk and I was drinking as well. And then to reconnect, you'd put something up I've started this new Facebook group for those that are giving up drinking. And I remember just shooting you a message saying I'm 5 months alcohol free, absolutely loving it. And you saying, join the group. That's fantastic. And it all went from there.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously now here we are recording the podcast. We're live on YouTube again. If you're listening to this, it's another one of our live recordings. We've been brave. And if you're watching live, put a comment on, let us know that you're here, ask questions, share what's coming up for you. We'd love to hear it. And yeah, I remember some of the wedding reception, but that's a good one. I was around my family and the alcohol stole a lot of those memories of that day. We started drinking really early, and I only have sketchy memories of my wedding reception, and that's really tragic. And I also almost got thrown out of my own wedding for dancing on the table.
I remember that. That's actually, I think that's what you were doing as I walked into the wedding reception, was dancing on the table. And we were talking about my wedding yesterday with my mum, and we got married in Italy and had an open bar. And in Italy, they were like, you can drink as much as you like, and it was €6 a head. And I was like, that can't be right. But of course, they didn't count on an English family like us, who was just full of massive drinkers, drinking as much as we did. And my family were taking bottles of spirits, and 12-year-old cousin was drunk, and it really, really, as you said, it stole so much of the memories.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. And it's such a shame. And actually today's topic is all about partners, family and friends. So it kind of leads us nicely into that topic around how alcohol can impact your relationships with your family, your partners, your friends. And it absolutely did for me. I think the longer I continued drinking, the more disconnected I became from my wife, from my closest members of my family, from everybody around me. And I imagine it was the same for you.
Yeah, it was. And it was just all I associated with lots of those relationships. My brother, my cousin, my mum, even, definitely my husband. I was just saying to you, I had been with my husband since I was 17. And ironically enough, I remember being in my 20s and saying to my husband, I think I have an issue with alcohol, and him laughing and saying, no, you don't. You're not drinking in the mornings. You're not drinking during the days. You're not hiding it. You're just a normal drinker. And it kept me stuck in that cycle for 20 years of thinking, okay, then I don't like the control it has over me, but as long as I'm not hiding my drinking and I'm not drinking in the mornings, there isn't an issue.
Yeah, and this is the problem. And one of the things that commonly comes up when I'm coaching people is I think partners can inadvertently enable their spouse, enable their boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it may be, and that can keep you stuck for a long time. And I think often it doesn't come from a place of malice or anything like that, but they think unless we make it clear how important it is for us to move into an alcohol-free lifestyle, they're never going to know. They're not mind readers. They don't know that. So they enable us.
Absolutely. And as you said, it comes a lot of the time, it comes from a place of love. They think they're giving us exactly what we want. It's like going on a diet, isn't it? And saying, right, I'm going to stop eating these treats. I need to lose some weight. And the husband or wife saying, no, you don't, you're perfect as you are. What can I get you? What do you want? And they think they're making you happy, but actually they're keeping you stuck. So as you say, unless you really clarify your reasons, which for me was just, I didn't like the person I was. I hated the feeling of being in my own skin. And that really, really did keep me stuck.
Yeah, I remember I was working along the lines of what you just shared. I was doing some one-to-one coaching with a lady, and she had been alcohol-free for quite a while, but she hadn't been brave enough to really articulate to her husband how much it mattered, how important it was to her. And she had a bit of an emotional meltdown over something not to do with alcohol. And because he didn't know this, he bought her a bottle of wine, came home with it, and started pouring it. And of course, it derailed her. And then it took another week or two for her to get back on track. If you're watching live on YouTube at the moment, do post some comments, questions. What's your relationship like with your partner? If you've quit drinking, has it improved your family, your friends? Or if you haven't quit drinking, have you thought about this aspect? I often ask people the question, what's at risk? What might change if you quit alcohol? How are those relationships going to shift? Because I think, Ellen, that can keep people stuck, right?
It can. And I know we've got two extremes of how a partner behaves when you quit drinking. I know that you had somebody who was extremely kind of supportive of that. I quit drinking, and I quit drinking, and probably subconsciously it was because my husband was drinking too much. There was a part of that, and I felt that I couldn't raise it as an issue all the time, that I was enabling that drinking. Like, okay, we would sit and we would drink, but I could see that he was self-medicating with alcohol, and I didn't feel like I had to lead by example to a certain extent, and be comfortable with who I was. And it did cause issues, and ultimately, as I gave up, it magnified what was going on with his drinking. And I set boundaries of, you cannot drink around me, around the children. Like, if you choose to do that, it needs to be somewhere else. You can't be here. And it's been a really, really difficult journey, because it's led to the end of my marriage. He, along with the mental health, he kept on saying, I don't have an alcohol issue. Now, he was hiding vodka in his water bottle during the day, and he would say, I don't have an issue with alcohol. You're just doing something that stops me being happy. And it kept on going back to that. It's the only thing that makes me happy, and you're stopping me. And it is really difficult. It's a really difficult time, but it's progress. I've managed to get out of a situation where it was just toxic, and I was with somebody who was self-medicating nonstop.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose I think your situation is probably more the exception than the norm.
Yeah.
And I just want to be really clear about that. Most people, actually, their partners are super supportive. They often see what their partner's doing when they quit drinking, and they often want a piece of the action. They see that they look great, their skin's improved, they're happier, they're calmer. They want to know how they've done it. And actually, that was what happened with my wife. She does still occasionally drink, but she never had a problem with it. But she's very much a mindful drinker these days, as opposed to a daily drinker, which she was when I was drinking. I think my issue was, and so obviously my wife's got a totally different personality style to where you were at.
Yeah.
And she was quite laid back. So I always knew that if I wanted to push, if I wanted to manipulate, I could go back to drinking.
Yeah.
So it really was vital for me to make it super clear to her how much this mattered. And I tried to quit. And then I'd say, oh, I'm going to go back to drinking. And I knew she'd be, well, if that's what you want to do, that's okay. A bit like the diet example that you gave. So I knew it was on me to really say to her, look, I want to do this. It's so important to me. And almost like I want you to slap me around the face.
Yeah,
if
it's
I start
accountability, isn't it?
Yeah.
Partners, actually, the majority, mine was an extreme situation, but most people that I speak to, their partners are great accountability partners. Once they realize how important it is, they can be your biggest cheerleader. And you say about like leading by example and people deciding that actually I want some of that action. Judy, who's in our group, her husband gave up drinking a year or so after she did, and he has just like switched, and they're the biggest advocates for giving up drinking in a partnership that works so well with both of them stepping into sobriety.
And I also think it's a lovely thing as a couple when you've got that, your thing, like we're both alcohol free and we're both loving life, and it's like your sort of shared passion together. And of course you can have other shared passions, but when you see couples who are both alcohol free, and there's a few that I know, I think that is pretty cool. Again, they're probably the exception rather than the norm. I think in most cases, all we're hoping for is a partner who's going to support us and put their arm around our shoulder when we need them.
Yeah, and the same, I had it because my mum lived with us, and I remember saying to somebody, like, she hasn't even acknowledged the fact that I don't drink anymore, and nor had my husband at the time. And somebody pointing out to me, do you know what, this is your journey, this is about what you do, and you should be proud of yourself. You don't need validation from anybody else. You do need support, but the likelihood is your partner's going to carry on drinking. Your journey is your journey, and you need to be sure that actually I don't want to drink anymore. So what they do is fine. But what I do is what counts. I'm responsible for my actions.
Yeah, exactly. And I think part of this journey this sounds kind of weird, but I think part of this journey of personal growth and development is about learning to stand on your own 2 feet. So you can get to a place where even if your partner wasn't around, and obviously that's not what we're aiming for, but even if your partner wasn't around, emotionally, physically, you can look after yourself intellectually, spiritually. And that is where the kind of growth is. So I often, when I'm talking to people about their relationships with their partner, I often say to them, ask your partner if they'll support you, ask them this. But I always end it with, ask them, but know that they might not give you what you want, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't expect something different from people. You can only control what you do and how you respond to what they give you. You can't expect people to change. And it is with friends and family, they will find it very difficult, especially when people are in that stage of, shall I quit drinking? And maybe you've tried to moderate, or maybe you've tried to stop drinking and you haven't been clear, and so you keep on going back to it. And your friends and family, it will take them just as much time to come to that kind of stage of change as it does for you. All the time they know that they can, like, oh, go on, have a glass of wine, it's fine. You need to be really like firm in your actions. No, this is what I want, this is why I want it, and this is what we're going to do. Like for me, one thing was just, I never had my favorite drink in the fridge. I would let people drink, but that was fine. I just didn't have my drink in the fridge because it wasn't temptation then.
Yeah, and that's a really sensible strategy, just removing it from the house, get it all out there. And actually Ashley is on, and she said, my enabling relationship with my partner is likely a large part of why I've continued drinking. I'm not blaming, because it's 100% my choice, but there is so much support in my drinking. Less support in my sobriety. So he supports the drinking as opposed to the sobriety. Yeah. He's proud of me when I'm on the wagon, but still binges nightly. And I see his relationship with alcohol more clearly. So that creates friction between us. It's hard to make out with a drunk adult when you're sober. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ashley's starting coaching with you tomorrow, Ellen.
Yay! Can't wait, Ashley. And this is a huge thing with people, because it does. It just puts a highlight on somebody's drinking when you're sober. And of course, it's scary for everyone when the association is that you drink together. And sometimes that whole relationship is set around, that's how we have a good time. That's how we have sex. That's a big thing, like sober sex. But you will find new things as you go along, or you won't. You can only control your drinking. You can't control his. You can just set boundaries going forward.
And this is what I mean about what's at risk. Like sober sex, often I avoid talking about it, but if you think about that, a lot of people use alcohol to loosen up, and it takes away our inhibitions. Sex feels a whole lot easier and more comfortable. And actually we can do things we regret when we've been drinking as well, sleep with strangers or whatever, stuff that's outside our boundaries. But this is what I mean about what's at risk when you ask yourself that important question, because I think some people subconsciously think, if I stop drinking, well, how's that going to be? What will that look like? Will they want to have sex with me? Will I want to have sex with them? And Ashley's right. It's hard to make out with a drunk adult when you're sober. They stink, the booze, and it's not.
And it is not attractive. No, it's not attractive. That was one of the biggest things for me when I gave up drinking and started, like, for the first few months, I didn't go around people that were drinking hugely. And then I would start going to these events and I would look at people and I think, it's so goddamn unattractive. The red wine lips, the kind of your personal space, people getting into it, people just loud and sloppy. I realized that was not who I wanted to be. I didn't want to be like that. But the only way you can find out how things are is to just do it. Like, you can see alcohol's always going to be there, isn't it? But just see what happens when you give up alcohol for a little while. And you don't need to tell him or yourself that it's forever. It's just like, I'm not drinking right now. I'm going to see how this goes.
Yeah, that's sensible. Although Ashley's probably sat there thinking, well, if I don't tell him, then if I don't mention it to him, he's going to know because I'm sat there not drinking. But then again, she said he is supportive and proud of me when I'm on the wagon, but he still binges nightly. So I think this is also about not attaching your emotional responses to anyone else. Don't worry about anyone else other than what you're doing and what your choices are.
And the likelihood is, as he sees you change and kind of step into your own light and feel empowered from the change you get with sobriety, he's going to start thinking, do you know what, I want to keep up with that. And he will start to subliminate. You don't even need to, you can't control it. And I think that's really important with other people's drinking, is you don't highlight their drinking at all. That is for them to choose. But he will just want to keep up that's what happens.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's having that kind of hope that as he sees you change, he starts to want a piece of the action. I mean, it doesn't always happen. And it's part of that journey of growth. But generally, more often than not, it does happen. They start to pay attention. They start to, look at what's going on here and think, actually, she's happier, she's calmer, she's looking good.
She'll look good. Yeah, that is a massive thing for people. When women start to look good and feel good about themselves, and their husbands can see that, hang on a minute, if I don't keep up with this, she's going to go and find somebody else who does pay her that attention that she needs. So I better get my ass into action.
Judy's on as well, and Carolyn, and they both just said we've just worked out how to comment. So it's nice to see
Hi guys. But friends and family as well. So I think it'd be interesting to bring some ex-family members onto the podcast at some point, because I think that's a really interesting thing to see how relationships change. With my cousin and my brother were my biggest drinking buddies, and I still have fantastic relationships with them, and it's different now. And I now have a dry house because my boundaries changed. I had no issue with people drinking in my house to start off with. Now I don't like it. Now I'm like, no, do you know what? I don't drink. I don't like being around drunk people. So I don't have alcohol in the house. And people come to stay with me for weeks at a time, and it changes things. But it can change for the better too, because the things that I do with my brother and my cousin now are things that we would have never done before. Going kayaking, going hiking. They pretend that they hate it, but actually we have just as good a laugh, and the relationship's great.
Oh, that's brilliant. And I actually did a YouTube video with my son. I've done one with my wife, done one with my dad, all talking about what it was like when I was drinking, how things have changed since I've quit. And it was so insightful hearing them really share openly, honestly, vulnerably about how they can't get my words out, about how they felt and how my behavior impacted them. I think the biggest shocker was my dad not realizing that as a teenager I was taking his wine up into my bedroom and polishing off the remains of the bottle. Didn't even know.
No, we were talking about it with my mum the other night, because my daughter's 14. And I was like, at 14, we were making merry mixes. So we were going into the parents' liquor cabinets and pouring like a pint of mixed liquor. And then we would all down that, and we were being sick, or we were drinking on the streets. And my mum was like, really? Yeah, we were doing that. It is, as you said, they're shocked by it. But most people that love you, I think, when they see you change, they are so proud of you.
Yeah.
I think when they see that you can take control and they can see what you can achieve in sobriety, anyone that loves you properly is just proud of that change.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that's so true. Judy just said, I love the fact you're both wearing blue. Obviously, if you're listening to the podcast, you're not going to be able to see that, but we are. We're both in coordination today.
Wasn't planned.
And Carolyn said, when I drank, I felt guilty about my husband's drinking. I thought I was enabling him. Turns out I wasn't. He still drinks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange because my mum lived with us, and we would get, when we moved to France, we would get a crate of white wine, a crate of rosé wine for me, white for my mum, and red for my husband. And we would drink the crate each week. We were getting that. And so I just thought we came from a family of big drinkers, or not big drinkers, because a bottle of wine a night was not a big amount to me. Six bottles over the week. Yeah, that's fine. That was like a normal drinking habit. But actually, it took my mum a long time to realize that I was not drinking again. 18 months down the line, she would still be offering, this is your favorite wine. Go on, taste it, taste it, taste it. And I was like, Mum, I don't drink anymore. But I've noticed that she doesn't ever drink around me now. Not ever. We go out to dinner every evening that she's here. She doesn't drink at all. So it's changed her habits. So we were probably enabling each other to a certain extent. And
then, of course, at the start, when you start introducing this topic of not drinking, she may well feel like, oh, it's, you know, shining the light on my drinking. You know, is she judging me? You know, is she better than me? And it can be quite uncomfortable for other family members and friends when we start talking about, well, we're not drinking. And of course, people in the sober community are pretty much the least judgmental people I know. So there's none of that going on, but I can see why it might be perceived like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And with friends, and I don't know if you get it, sometimes I'll get people going, oh, sorry, I'm going to have a drink. Is that all right?
Yeah, I've had that.
Fill your boots. I used to love drinking. It wasn't the case of I hated drinking. I was there. I loved it. And there is zero judgment if you want to.
Yeah, my dad said that to me. And I said to him, if I was a vegan, you'd still have a burger if we were out for dinner, wouldn't you? So why is it any different?
Yeah, it is funny. But friends, I don't know about you, but my friend groups changed slightly when I gave up drinking, and lots of people that I work with, this is a real fear of, I will lose my friends.
Yeah, my friendship group has changed quite a bit. I mean, we actually moved to a new area as well. So I've made real efforts to kind of get into the community here and make new friends and new connections, but with things that aren't revolving around alcohol. So like fitness groups, and I do stuff at the local church. I get involved in all sorts of things. But there were a lot of friendships where they were glued together by alcohol in my sort of old life, and they've just faded away into the background. They weren't meaningful. You know, people now they're people I can talk to about how I feel, listen to how they feel, what's going on in their lives, people that I really care about.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when you start showing up as the true you start expecting more from those that are around you as well. You want to see the true them. When your relationships are fixed around alcohol and only alcohol, then you never see the true person, and you're never representing yourself authentically.
And I think you start to look at relationships as well, with like friendships, and start thinking, you know, is this a bit superficial? Even in a selfish way, like, what am I getting out of this? What is it giving me? And don't get me wrong, I think it's okay to have those sort of superficial fun friendships you can dip in and out of. They're okay. But then I also think it's important to have the friendships where you can go a bit deeper with people and be able to be, as you said, vulnerable, open up about stuff. Right, there's a load more comments, so let's just read a couple of those. I've just managed to take them off the screen though. So Alexandra said, I've cut down so much after hearing your advice last week. Thank you. My aim is to stop completely. Yeah, so Alexandra, that was episode 1. Now we're on episode 2. So by the end of the series of season 2, you'll be fine.
Absolutely.
And Ashley said, thank you for your insights. Through this journey, I'm realizing a lot of my sobriety is centered on releasing control and the codependency in my relationship. And you're right, my partner actually does see the positive changes in me and gets sober curious. So I should focus on that.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that's so important. And control is a big one. Yeah, I think when we're able, there's a song by Alanis Morissette called Thank You. And in that song, she says, the moment I let go of it was the moment I got more than I can ever know. And at the first time I heard it, didn't really mean much. And every time I hear it now, I realize that that was what I had to do. I had to let go of control to get more than I could ever know. And I really did. I had to let go of it though.
And control, God, trying to keep control, it creeps up on you. You don't even realize you're doing it until the wheels fall off and you can't control things. And then you have to let go of control. And the universe will send you exactly what you need then.
Yeah, exactly. Control's a big one. And it seems to come up time and time again through coaching and through this journey. And actually, even when we realize we've got a problem with alcohol and we know what's best for us, we still try and cling on to some level of control.
Yeah.
The one thing you can control is your choice not to drink.
Yeah, absolutely. Your response to what the situation, that's the only thing you can control, how you respond to everything.
Ron said, you can change your friendship group. Unfortunately, you can't change your family group.
No, but you can set boundaries. And that's a really difficult one with people because they feel like they can't with family. We kind of brought up with this, they're your family and blood is thicker than water. But do you know what? Sometimes if that situation for you is not a great situation, you can set boundaries.
When I was doing therapy, a lot of it was around my relationship with my mum, as it is for many people when they do therapy. And she was either emotionally unavailable for me or she was emotionally overbearing. And I think as a child, she used me to meet a lot of her own emotional needs. And long story short, when I came into adulthood, there was a lot of emotional imbalance. It's probably the nicest way of putting it about myself. And I actually made a decision through that therapy work to take a break from our relationship, which was incredibly hard. And I had about 6 months away from her, and it enabled me to put myself in control of the relationship instead of her kind of calling the shots and dipping in and out of as and when she pleased. I could then go back to it on my terms, which I've now done. And both of us have now agreed that actually that time apart enabled us to truly come back together. And I think it was one of the best things I've ever done. I actually feel really loved by my mum now, which I didn't in the past. And I used to withhold love from her because I didn't feel it. And we've actually talked about this stuff now, and I'm able to express love to her. She can do it to me. And we were both making each other worse. And it needed that break, that boundary to be able to then come back to it.
And I was talking about this with a client today. We are so often more vulnerable with those that are not close to us. We can be vulnerable on things like Instagram or on a podcast or where it's faceless, but with our parents or our spouse, sometimes it feels so difficult because again, it's a control thing. If I just keep my shit together, everything's going to be okay. But there's massive strength in vulnerability. There really is, but it's so difficult sometimes to share with your mother and tell her exactly what you're feeling and how you're feeling and why you're feeling it. Absolutely. But to be able to do that's amazing.
And when I remember sort of sitting down with her, again, this was during therapy, when I was doing therapy, and actually saying to her how I felt about how she brought me up and really getting into the detail of it. And I kind of, in hindsight, wish I'd said it a bit differently because it just all blurted out in one big go. And I said that you were a crap mother and I don't think you did a great job. But it was the catalyst for us both going on a journey that resulted in getting to a place where the relationship is so much better. And a lot of people get stuck with that. I've spent 1.5 years in a fantastic men's therapy group, and there were a couple of guys in there who never got to the stage where they were able to say what they needed to say to their parents. And all the ones who did were able to move forward and to make real progress.
Yeah, and I go back to this thing of we can do hard things. I don't know if Linda's on tonight, but this is a favorite phrase. We can do hard things. And quite often the hard thing is having that conversation with somebody that you don't want to have. But doing it does allow you to move forward.
Yeah, the worst thing you can do is when it's all about making the uncomfortable become comfortable. When those things come up that fill you with fear and you just don't want to do it, that's the time when you sort of face towards it instead of thinking, I'm just going to drink a bottle of wine, that'll get rid of it, because it doesn't. Linda is on, she's commented. Carolyn said, I think it's having an impact on my husband. He does drink fewer days a week now, which is brilliant. And she said, of course, when you've been drinking with partners for years, it can be a challenge. We need to be unwavering in our decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's so true, isn't it? And
absolutely.
Judy said, putting the alcohol down is life-changing. The minute you put your last drink down, you're free. Don't buy it, don't pour it, don't drink it. Keep saying it daily. And also, Judy shared a comment on one of the recent lives, and she said, what in my, I can't remember how it quite goes, but it was, nothing I do today needs alcohol or something. That's her
favorite. Yeah, nothing today will be made better by alcohol. I think that's
that's it. Yeah, I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. And just keep on repeating that mantra. And it is true. Like, I am going through some real hard stuff, but I keep on going back to that. Nothing today requires alcohol. Nothing today will be made better by alcohol. And I never regret staying sober.
And how will it help me? How will it add to my day? It won't.
No.
And this is the thing. Once you start realizing that alcohol is interfering with your life and it's causing problems, having negative consequences, you never, ever get what you used to get from alcohol.
No.
The trade-off becomes different. You're not, you get 30, 40 minutes of numbing out, maybe a bit longer. There's always negative consequences. You always end up feeling shame, guilt, all the rest of it. It isn't worth it when you map it out on a piece, like write it down on a piece of paper.
Absolutely. I say, like, have a look, like, look at that glass of wine. Yes. So you might get that, as you said, the few minutes of real gratification, but look at the glass of wine and see what it's truly filled with. It's filled with guilt, with shame, with hating yourself, with bad relationships. There is so much more to that glass of wine than just the glass of wine.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, I've said this before, it's a drug. Drugs have to have an upside or nobody would buy them. No. So know that. No, it's a drug, and every drug comes with a trade-off. It comes with a consequence, a negative effect. And often we don't, we think negative effects, that's a hangover, but there's so much more, like you just described.
Yeah, absolutely. And sobriety just offers the exact opposite.
The opposite of
it. The opposite, yeah.
Exactly right. Alexandra said, right, my goal now is to be completely abstinent by the end of these podcasts.
Fantastic.
I don't try not to use the word abstinent, Alexandra, because I sort of, that sounds like a bit of a punishment. Like, try and think of it to adopt an alcohol-free lifestyle.
You're going to be free, and it is just the most empowering thing you'll do.
It totally is. Lorenza said, this is helping me so much. I've only been 5 days sober. I do prefer staying by myself now. All my friends drink. So now I'm just doing some self-care stuff like reading and a lot of meditation.
Yeah. And as Simon said, your groups will change. Like, you start looking for things that are not centered around alcohol. I started climbing. I do a lot of yoga. I go hiking with people. These people drink, but not in the situations that we are. And in fact, 3.5 years later, I find that my close friend group, it's like the universe sent me all these people that really don't drink. My friend Helen has been sober for 25 years. I have another friend, he really doesn't drink. It really feels like the universe has given me what I need. So it will happen. It just might take some time, and there might be a bit of a bumpy road in between, but know that it will happen.
And actually, the opposite of addiction is connection. And so try and avoid isolating yourself. One of the things that I do, I keep a paper chart on my desk at work, and it's got a bunch of my self-care stuff on it. Like, have I had breakfast? Have I taken my vitamins? Have I connected with other people and socialized? Have I exercised? Yeah. And I can see from the data that I've collected over the months that I've been keeping this, that when I connect with others, when I socialize, I feel better because I track my mood on there as well. When I exercise, I feel better. So I think it's really good to sort of learn your self-care routine and actually gather data on a daily basis, either in a journal or on a chart of some description, where you're sort of working out, well, what is it I need? What do I need daily? What do I need a couple of times a week? And you'll get to that place where you know your self-care routine, you know what you need.
Yeah, absolutely. And you will find people that give you a natural dopamine hit, where you're not searching for this fake dopamine hit from alcohol. Go where the good energy is. People that fill that up for you, that fill that energy.
Actually, and Oliver's just made a good point on the YouTube comments where Lorenza said, "I'm only 5 days sober." He said, "There is no only, you are 5 days." Yeah,
and I say, like, the 10-day first 10 days is the most difficult. Know that will get easier, but you're halfway through that difficult phase. So just keep on going. It's going to get easier from here.
Yeah, and I think William Porter in Alcohol Explained, the book, he talks about how after around 7 to 10 days, we become 60 to 70% more mentally resilient, able to cope with things that used to phase us. You might even feel that starting to happen, and things starting to just feel a bit easier.
I call it your tiger blood. You suddenly, I think it's the weekends, isn't it? You get 2 weekends under your belt, because they're the real difficult periods for people. Like, I'll just drink at the weekends. Not during the week, it's fairly easy, but when you can get those 2 weekends in and you know that you can pass those weekends without drinking, you start to feel like, I can do this. I can do anything that I want.
Yeah, exactly that. That's so true. And then as you go forward and you start having these milestones, the first time you go out socially, the first time you meet up with friends, go to a wedding, whatever it might be, you just become stronger and stronger. And you've done it. First Christmas, the first New Year's Eve.
Yeah. 100%.
It's so true. Leroy said, "I'm just beginning this journey. Quick question, please. Do non-alcoholic beers, spirits, etc. keep you hooked mentally?" I hope this makes sense.
This is, I don't know about you, but I find this is a real kind of split in people. I didn't drink any alcohol-free drinks for the first 12 months. I just drank water because I was on a bit of a health journey. Now I love alcohol-free alternatives, but I do find that they're a trigger for some people.
Yeah, my view is pretty much the same. I'm a big fan of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's about just experimenting, finding something that you love. What worked for me was not just picking up the alcohol-free version of the same thing that I used to drink. So I used to drink red wine every single night. Mm-hmm. And if I'd gone to alcohol-free red wine, I think that could have potentially been triggering for me. So I started looking at things like seed lip and some of the alcohol-free botanicals. I love those, and I still drink them now. The only thing I don't love is the price of them, because some of them cost a fortune.
They're like €25 a bottle for alcohol-free. So I don't share mine. I've said this before. When my children kind of go, "Can I have that?" That makes me feel uncomfortable, because they are alcohol-free alternatives, and I'll say, "No, you can't." And they're like, "Why not?" Well, one, I feel like it is kind of a stepping stone somehow, the association, but also the price of them, without a doubt. It's too expensive to share with kids.
Exactly.
And the alcohol-free wine, I've realized I don't even like the taste of wine. I used to drink it by the bottle full, and now just the smell of it makes me like, oh my God, it smells toxic.
Yeah, exactly. But it is about finding what works for you. And I definitely think that the tip of steering clear of the alcohol-free version of what you were drinking before is sensible. Explore some of the spirits, the botanicals, the alcohol-free ones, of course.
There's some great. And also for me, I like it. I feel like people will come to my house and I will have alternatives like mocktails or the seed lip, all those kind of things. And it's still, you've still got that ritual, that connection with people of that we have the fancy glass, we have the ice, we have this, and it still feels like that nice ritual of sharing a drink together.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, there's other alcohol-free drinks. Like I love ginger tea with honey in it. I'll often drink that in the evening. That's an alcohol-free drink.
Yeah, tonic water. I just like anything slightly bitter. There's all the soft drinks, Orangina. Pick up anything.
Yeah, so you can make your own recipes. And I remember when I went to the US, they didn't have a very good supply of alcohol-free drinks. They're slowly catching up. And I went in Target, the supermarket over in America, and they just didn't have anything. And I was probably 12 months sober, and it was part of my routine having an alcohol-free drink. And I bought some tonic water, and then I found some cocktail mixer syrup, the syrup they put to hide the alcohol taste in cocktails. So I just got some of that and just made my own little alcohol-free cocktail. It was great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's plenty of things you can do. Get creative and make it fun. Enjoy it. So Leroy was grateful for that. A few people also on YouTube saying that alcohol-free drinks were my lifesaver. I love an adult alcohol-free drink.
Yeah.
Alexandra said I find them triggering, which, as Ellen said, some people do, and it's important to find out what works for you. Carolyn said I've yet to find a decent alcohol-free wine.
Yeah, as I said, not my go-to at all. I love the alcohol-free beers, to be honest, in the summer. And ironically, France, which has the biggest consumption of alcohol in the world, I think, amount of adults that drink, we have a fantastic range of alcohol-free drinks, and the alcohol-free beers are amazing here. And I love it in the summer. Nice cold alcohol-free beer, and people that come to my house, they'll quite happily drink the alcohol-free beer. What's not to love, really? You're drinking it, you've got the taste of it, and no hangover whatsoever. The only thing I would say is if you're on a bit of a health kick and you're giving up alcohol for that reason, because that was my reason to start off with, they're still laden with calories. So if you can stick to water, it's still much better for you.
Yeah, that's true. And it's also good to see, like with a lot of the major sporting events now, the likes of Heineken, Peroni, they've really been pushing the 0% option. So it's taken away the stigma that some people have around sobriety, and it's normalizing it, it's making it mainstream. It's cool to be alcohol free these days.
It is. And anyone that's going into a bar, I say this over and over again, go in proud. Like, I am alcohol free. I am the consumer in here. I am the customer. What can you offer me? The bars and the restaurants need to up their game when it comes to providing alcohol-free drinks. It shouldn't just be a juice fruit mocktail that they're selling for the same price as a cocktail. They need to start stocking some of these good alcohol-free drinks.
Vote with your feet. If people aren't offering decent alcohol-free alternatives, then go somewhere that does. Linda actually said, I'm going to a sushi place today that mixes their own alcohol-free cocktails, lemon, grass, and mint. So that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, very nice.
It's making me hungry. Right, we better wrap up. So that's the end of episode 2 of season 2, and we'll be back again next week live on YouTube. If you're subscribed to my newsletter, I always send out a link to it so that you can join. It's great that we can do this in front of a live audience. And if you're listening back, let us know what you think of the podcast. Send us a message on social media. So we will see you all again very, very soon.
Next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Done.